for being with us today at the 51st Big Ten Conference Football Media Days presented by Old National Bank. As I stand here and look out at Lucas Oil Stadium, we're starting the season today, but in just a few months, we'll be back here with 67,000 Big Ten fans and two teams competing for a Big Ten championship. I'm excited to begin my first full academic year as the Big Ten Commissioner. And this event represents not only the beginning of a 2023 football season, but also the start of a new year for up to 10,000 Big Ten student athletes across 28 sports. I cannot help but remember the last time I was at a Big Ten football media day. It was back when I was at ABC Sports. Keith Jackson came with us, and I can tell you there's nothing better than traveling with Keith Jackson around college football. He was remarkable. He hosted and introduced the coaches. As you might imagine, his introductions were memorable, and that experience inspired me to leave the coaches' introductions to the pros. And so over the next 2 days, you will hear from our media partners as they announce our coaches. I'd like to thank the Big Ten staff for their great work in organizing this event, and also acknowledge Diana Sabo and AJ Eads, who lead Big Ten football all year long. A special thank you to the Irsay family, the Indianapolis Colts, the Indiana Sports Corp, for serving as our hosts at Lucas Oil Stadium, an absolutely perfect venue for this event. We have many of our partners here today, including representatives from 12 bowl games. We greatly appreciate the work that you and your volunteers do to provide memorable experiences for our student athletes, coaches, staff, and fans. A special thank you to the Rose Bowl. Big Ten teams have made 73 trips to Pasadena, beginning with Michigan's first trip in 1902. The Rose Bowl has been at the center of the history of Big Ten football. Thank you to Bill Hancock from the CFP for your dedication to college football and college athletics. It's been great to work with you again these past few months. Welcome and thanks to our media partners here today, BTN, Fox, CBS, and NBC, especially as we begin our new broadcast pattern this fall. More on that in a few minutes. Most importantly, thank you to our head coaches and student athletes. A special welcome to our 4 new coaches, Matt Rule from Nebraska, David Braun at Northwestern, Ryan Walters from Purdue, and Luke Fickle from Wisconsin. All of our coaches have been very generous in giving me their time and support as we head towards the start of a new season. While not here today, I want to acknowledge the dedication and work done by more than 96 Big Ten football officials, led by the best team in the business, Bill Carollo, Ron Gunther, and Coach Barry Alvarez. Thank you to the Big Ten Council of Presidents and Chancellors, our ADs, SWAs, and faculty reps, and all of the staff across our institutions that work tirelessly to provide Big Ten student athletes with both a world-class education and a world-class athletic experience. And of course, thank you to our fans who support all of our programs all year long with their time. And lastly, thank you to all of our media here today and across the country who support our programs, coaches, and student athletes. We appreciate you being here and all you do for us during the season. So as I stand here this morning, I'm about 2 weeks away from completing my first 100 days as commissioner. To use a baseball phrase, just enough dirt in my spikes to make some observations, and I want to share a few with you today. First, I want to say that by far the best part of the job is being around our student athletes, coaches, administrators, and fans at our games, tournaments, and championships. I was fortunate that when I started this position, I got to be at the Big Ten women's golf, men's lacrosse, and baseball tournaments. And best of all, I was there to watch Northwestern win the women's lacrosse national championship. Watching the level of play and coaching and the passion from our fans was obviously incredible, and our Big Ten staff does a remarkable job to ensure that our student athletes have the best experiences. My second observation is more about the state of college athletics, and that is that meaningful collaboration with the commissioners of other conferences and President Baker of the NCAA, combined with legislative support from Congress, is essential to address the changing landscape of college athletics. And most importantly, to preserve the core mission of providing academic opportunities through athletics. I can assure you that the work is happening in some form every day. Third, I've spent an enormous amount of time talking to our coaches, student athletes, ADs, the COPC, and my A5 partners about NIL. And I've learned a lot what NIL is and what NIL is not. What it is a great mechanism for student athletes to benefit from their name, image, and likeness through real marketing opportunities. And we as a conference not only support, but celebrate a student athlete's ability to generate unlimited benefits from true NIL. However, it is important to say that much of what is happening now under the guise of NIL is not true NIL, but rather a move to a pay-for-play system that is driving recruitment and the transfer portal. This system operates away from and without institutional control, nor is it required to comply with Title IX. As a voluntary membership organization, the NCAA needs to be able to enforce its longstanding rules prohibiting inducements and pay for play. I do, however, feel optimistic about the future of college athletics. Recently, I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. and meet with members of Congress to discuss a fair and true NIL framework and discuss other issues facing student athletes and college athletics. Members of Congress and their staffs are engaged, and there's real momentum for bipartisan legislation that benefits student athletes, protects the academic athletic model, and recognizes that a national competitive landscape needs national rules that can be enforced. We are pleased that Congress is seeking to ensure that critical student athlete welfare benefits like continuing health care, lifelong learning, and mental health resources are broadly provided. Recently, the A5 issued a joint statement recognizing the significant work done by Senators Blumenthal, Booker, and Moran, as well as Senators Tuberville and Manchin. We look forward to working with them and their colleagues to move legislation forward. Next, I want to give you all an update on the exciting work the conference is doing to provide USC and UCLA with a thoughtful and smooth integration into the Big Ten. I had the pleasure of spending time in Los Angeles in mid-June with leadership from USC and UCLA. Student athlete welfare, scheduling, and marketing were the primary focus for both institutions at our meetings. Our football schedule format was an important step towards integrating UCLA and USC. The Flex Protect Plus system, as we call it, preserves important rivalries, while at the same time, the nine-conference game format maintains the conference's strength of schedule and guarantees that every member will play at least one home and away game against every other member over each four-year period, truly connecting the conference. Thanks to Kerry Kenny and our ADs for leading this work. Led by Diana Sabo and the recent addition to our staff of Becky Penny, we are working hard on men's and women's basketball, and also the right regular season and postseason formats for each of our Olympic sports. I'm confident you will see creative solutions that address travel concerns, connect all of our members and student athletes into a unified conference, and promote competitive balance. I've also been asked a lot on the progress we've made in our long-form media rights agreements, and the answer is simply we've made significant progress towards their completion. We appreciate the spirit of collaboration from BTN, Fox, CBS, and NBC. I know that our partners will work with us to provide Big Ten student athletes with unmatched exposure. Before we turn our focus to football, we need to celebrate the athletic and academic success of all of our Big Ten student athletes during the 22-23 academic year. First, 50 Big Ten student athletes earned academic All-American honors. Looking back at NCAA postseason play for all sports last year, the Big Ten had 36 teams qualify for Sweet 16s, 13 advanced to Elite Eights, 9 went on to Final Fours, and 8 teams made it to the NCAA championship finals, where Penn State and Northwestern won national championships in wrestling and women's lacrosse, respectively. Big Ten student athletes earned 19 individual national championships and collected 6 National Player of the Year awards. And 120 student athletes were drafted in 6 professional sports. We wish them great success and congratulate their families and coaches. Our Big Ten hockey recently completed its 10th season, with 2 teams reaching the Frozen Four for the 2nd consecutive season. And Michigan's Adam Fantilli became the 2nd Hobey Baker Award winner from the conference in the last 3 seasons. In addition, Wisconsin's women's hockey program captured a national title. In men's basketball, we had 8 teams selected for tournament play, which was tied for the most bids by any conference. Purdue's Zach Edey was named Consensus National Player of the Year. It was an historic year for Big Ten women's basketball. Iowa was the first Big Ten school since 2005 to reach the NCAA championship game. And Caitlin Clark was the first women's basketball player in conference history to be chosen as unanimous National Player of the Year. She also won the Honda Cup as Collegiate Women Athlete of the Year. We had 7 NCAA Women's Tournament bids and a conference record 13 wins. We also saw season-long viewership records and attendance records at our women's tournament. And now on to football. We had a great 22 season. Last season, the Big Ten sent 2 teams, Michigan and Ohio State, to the CFP for the first time and matched the SEC as the only conferences to do so. We finished with 3 teams in the AP top 7, with Michigan at 3, Ohio State at 4, and Penn State at 7. The Big Ten had a winning record in bowl games, highlighted by Penn State's Rose Bowl win. A total of 31 Big Ten standouts earned All-American honors, including 15 who earned first-team recognition from at least one organization. Big Ten players earned 6 national awards, including the Butkus Award and the Outland Trophy. Last season, the Michigan-Ohio State game was the most watched regular season game by a margin of more than 4 million viewers. At the stadium, the Big Ten drew over 6.5 million fans to home games and featured the top 3 drawing teams in the nation. Early preseason polls have 5 Big Ten teams in the top 25, and the conference welcomes back 99 all-conference players. When I think about the season ahead and the future for Big Ten football, I believe the conference is positioned to continue its historic success. It starts with our incredible history and traditions, great players and coaches, and a passionate fan base across 12 states. With a population of more than 125 million people when UCLA and USC enter the conference in 2024. And with our new media partners, our reach will be unprecedented. We have done a great deal of scheduling work the past few months to ensure that we have strong matchups in every telecast window. And I think Thanksgiving weekend this season is a powerful example of that work. Iowa at Nebraska on CBS on Thanksgiving Friday at noon. Penn State at Michigan on Michigan State on NBC on Thanksgiving Friday in prime time. And then Ohio State at Michigan on Fox on Saturday at noon, followed by a 4 p.m. Big Ten matchup on Fox as well. Each of these games will receive significant promotion in NFL Thanksgiving games. The power of broadcast TV cannot be underestimated. Last season, 27 of the 30 most watched college football telecasts were on broadcast TV. This season, the Big Ten will have more football games on broadcast TV than any other conference, a projected 34. When the new deal is fully implemented in 2024, we are projecting 45 broadcast TV games each season. Big Ten fans will move seamlessly from Fox to CBS to NBC. As I conclude today, just 87 days in as the commissioner of the Big Ten, I'm excited about our future. With committed leadership from our COPC and ADs, an energized conference staff, the addition of USC and UCLA, new and exciting media partners and expanded platforms, support from our coaches with the goal of winning national championships in all sports, and a strong belief in the academic athletic model, I believe that we are really just getting started. Thank you for being here, and now I'll turn it over to our moderator, Jamie, for any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. If we have questions, please raise your hand and we'll get somebody with the mic over here.
Commissioner David Gold, Inside and You. With the recent allegations that have come out of Northwestern's athletic program, I'm wondering, is the conference launching an investigation, and will we expect to see further punishment for Northwestern?
Yeah. Look, the process is right now, Northwestern's launched 2 investigations. The process in the conference on these matters is led by the institution. So there's no investigation being launched by the conference. We'll wait to see the results of those investigations, and we'll have further comments at that time. Thank you.
Other questions? Up here in front. Hold on, Bill, just 1 second. We're going to get you the mic.
Thank you. Phil Thompson, Chicago Tribune.
Morning.
Good morning to you. Along those lines, does this behoove you to take a look at hazing within the conference, not just Northwestern, to see if this is an issue in other schools?
Yeah, I think when something like this happens, and I think our member institutions are going to take upon themselves to do that, right? And the obvious result would be to look at practices to make sure that what's happening on campus meets the standards that we expect to provide safe, and healthy environment for student athletes. So I think that's where that work needs to take place, and I know that in talking to some of our directors and coaches that they understand that.
Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports. Commissioner, I know you're obviously new on the job, and realignment and expansion is still being talked about nationally. I was wondering what has the feedback been from your leadership in the conference about the future of the Big Ten and whether it should be larger than 16 in the future?
Yeah, look, I think, and this came up, early. It comes up a lot over the last couple of months. What I'll say is that all the direction I'm getting from leadership, our presidents and chancellors, our athletic directors, is to focus on USC and UCLA. We have a lot of work to do there. I'm proud of the scheduling format that we created in football. I think it touches on all the right things, but we have significant work to do on scheduling our other sports, especially our Olympic sports, to come up with the best solutions. I believe that we've got a good plan in motion. I think we'll learn from it, and then like anything, there'll be tweaks and changes. But overall, that's really where we are. I'm not getting direction to do anything else other than that in terms of just what the conference looks like right now.
Down here in front.
Hi, Tony. Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. When you talk about USC and UCLA coming into the conference, obviously, big changes coming next year for college football playoff too. How do you kind of balance staying focused on this year while also preparing for those big changes in the future?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, look, when it comes to the schedule this year, we're ready. We have work done right in front of us. Today is the start of that. We've got we owe that to the conference to all of our existing members to make sure we put everybody in the best place this season. I don't think there's any distraction. I think we're able to do, two things at once, look forward and at the same time do everything we need to do day in and day out for this football season, not just our football, but also the rest of, the schedule this year for Big Ten sports. So I feel like we have the staff and the depth. We've done some things internally to shore up our staff to be able to do that, to put more energy into the integration of USC and UCLA. So I feel like the staff adjustments that we've made will allow us to do that effectively.
We're going to come over here to the right.
Tony, right here.
Where are we?
Welcome to the Big Ten. Question for you. You touched on it in your initial statement, was the transfer portal, which just seems like it's way out of control with the number of athletes that are in this now. What are some really ideas that you guys have put forward so far to maybe put the horse back in the barn?
One of the things that we're most focused on is just the incentives that are being created for students to consider leaving, right? So when you have a system that's providing, potential benefits for entering the portal, and a lot of athletes unfortunately aren't realizing those benefits when they enter the portal. So there's a little bit of a grass is greener on the other side. When I spend time with our coaches, the portal is an absolute priority. I think the combination of what's happening in terms of the benefits that are being provided with the freedom to move, that combination really came together at the same time. And so you've seen the system now operate together, and it's creating all kinds of different incentives that are fueling lots more kids to get there. And I think, when I talk to our leadership, what I get is a real deep concern about what's going to happen with graduation as students move at the levels that we're seeing today. Are they going to, moving credits and major changes? All of those things are important. And I think we're going to see the results of that pretty shortly with the data that comes out from this flood. But I think the first thing, the idea is like, what can you do around the incentives? I think, we need to really spend a lot of time on that. And that's, I think, what our focus is. And that's why, I talk about the difference between true NIL and NIL that really is NIL. We got to do a better job of explaining what each thing is, right? And they're two very different things.
We'll go down here in front to our left.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports, Columbus. My question, the Pete Thamel article came out a couple months ago, and it kind of illuminated there was a lack of communication from the conference office down to the universities as to what was promised to the television partners, what could be delivered. Under your watch, is it going to be your mandate that you bring everybody involved in these discussions as much as you can? Somebody's got to lead them, but at the end of the day, these are still events on college campuses being played at off times, and it ruins the fan experience in some instances for night games in November, these kind of things. Just what do you say about that whole discussion that came out that things were promised but hadn't been fully vetted through the colleges?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to the work that was done before I got there. What I will say overall, that scheduling is the most collaborative process in the office. Like, it doesn't work unless the conference staff is working with our athletic directors and SWAs, on a daily basis to come up with the solutions. There are historic things that get carried forward in every conference: who you play, when you want to play. And those things are all there, and we respect those. So, specifically, I think the first thing is, collaboration is obviously a big part of it. The second part of your question about it gets back to that old balance between in-person and TV, right? We hear that all the time. How do you balance the need of fans when they're traveling at the same time trying to expose our programs to the biggest audience, especially, our national power programs that carry the load of most of that. So we understand that. I think some of the historic things that have been traditional in the conference in terms of when teams will schedule and when they won't are carried forward, and that's forward, and we respect that. And our job is to work with that to see if there can be exceptions and changes, but at the same time understanding that those institutions are advocating for their fans and their student athletes, and we're respectful of that.
This will be our final question down here.
Hey, Tony, Jimmy
Hey.
Watkins, Cleveland.com. You'd mentioned in your opening remarks that a lot of the NIL stuff that's happening, you don't think it's true NIL.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think the system is operating that way? And how can you guys, through legislation or increased scrutiny by the NCAA, track that stuff and correct it?
Yeah, look, I want to provide some clarity what true NIL means, right? When I say true NIL, what I mean is that the ability of a student athlete to take advantage of their marketing rights from either local or national companies. And that depends on your ability, your exposure you receive, the strength of your social media, all of those factors. And all of that's great. And that should be unlimited. What we're seeing, though, is a sense of, because there's been this sort of lack of enforcement around traditional things like inducements for pay for play, we're seeing money move in different places, and it's away from our member institutions. So I think what we can do is, number one, we have very long-standing rules to address this, and we need to have the ability to enforce our rules. Partly, we need support from Congress to be able to be put in a position to do that without litigation or anything hanging over our heads. So that's the balance, but then and try to explain the difference between those two. And look, in addition, you're seeing states come forward and pass legislation that really is only driven for one thing, to create more competitive power in that state. And that's just not the right place for us to be.
Okay, we do have time for one more. We'll go right over here in the center.
Commissioner, good morning. Charlie DeMar with CBS Chicago. Following the hazing allegations surrounding Northwestern's football program, what conversations have you had with Northwestern's athletic director, Derek Gregg, interim head coach, David Braun, specifically about this upcoming season and the culture and safety ultimately for the players in this upcoming season?
Yeah, I've spoken with Derek a few times, and I think our focus has been on moving forward, what they're doing, keeping me informed about the investigations and what they're doing on campus. With respect to Coach Braun, we've been able to connect. My first outreach was to congratulate him on the opportunity. Obviously, it didn't happen the way I'm sure he envisioned in terms of becoming a head coach at this level. But at the same time, I wanted him to know that we're here to support him going forward. I think that's what their focus is. So the investigations will yield results about what has happened. But I think there's a commitment to understand what's expected going forward.
Why don't we go right over here on the aisle? I keep saying it's the last one, but we're stretching for television.
Yeah, Commissioner, how close do you think college football or major college sports are to actually paying the players themselves, as opposed to them seeking income from NIL sources, et cetera? How close is that model?
Yeah, it's tough to predict. What I will say about that is I think there's a commitment to understand that student athletes can and be entitled to additional benefits. What that form that takes, how that's tied to academics, all of that needs a lot more discussion. I don't want to predict on when that could happen in terms of a time frame. There's a lot of discussion about what future miles can be. And I think the understanding among at least my colleagues is that we've got to consider lots of different changes to the system, while at the same time encouraging the true NIL to keep happening.
All right, at this time, I will thank
Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank
for
you,
his
Jamie.
time,
Thank you, everybody.
and we'll be back with the coaches momentarily.